Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Crypt on the Green here in London. This is the second night of two. We're having the Imperialism on Trial Free Julian Assange events. I'll just say thank you all for attending tonight, and anyone who has been here the two nights, a special thank you. We've had a pretty busy schedule as well today with a protest at Buckingham Palace and at Downing Street and a walk along the Mall protesting for Julian Assange. So could I hand you over to someone who's much better at doing things like this than me? Mr. George Galloway, the host and speaker for tonight.
Thank you very much, Greg, and congratulations to you and your fellows for organising these trials of imperialism. This is the second set in London in the last month or so, and indeed the second this week. And thank you to the Crypt on the governing this church, which is, I'm sure you'll all agree, a particularly beautiful setting for this latest trial of imperialism. Behind me on the wall are the Ten Commandments. I quote only 6, 7, 8, and 9. Thou shalt do no murder. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbour. That's the Tory Party leadership campaign election summed up in 4 holy lines. Thou shalt do no murder. Julian Assange is behind bars for exposing their murder. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Well, we better leave that one alone, Boris. Rory. Well, I better not go on. They're the only two that are proven in the public domain. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbour. Well, tell that to Jeremy Corbyn, on the receiving end of false witness on an hourly basis. And that's from his own party, never mind from the others. Thou shalt not steal. My goodness, their pockets are bulging with that which they stole, not just from the British taxpayer, but of course from the world. I have a wonderful array of speakers, all under my control. And I tell them we'll be having strict time limits this evening, because a friend of mine spoke last night and he didn't rise until 10:30 p.m. God knows what time he finished. And I don't know if there was anyone left in the hall to hear him. So we'll stick strictly to time. I just want to start with one example of empire. One so lurid, so brazen, it's almost impossible to believe that it happened. At the very moment that President Trump was here in England, plighting his troth before Her Majesty about our special relationship, about our great enduring alliance, the Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, who looks like a character that just walked off the set of The Sopranos, as these are, of so-called Jewish leaders. We're not told who they were and who they were leading, in which he declared, to prolonged and stormy applause, as they used to say, that he would ensure that the United States would push back against any possibility of a Jeremy Corbyn Labour government coming to power in Britain. Which actually begs the question whether that pushback has already started. Indeed, whether it hasn't been going on over these last 4 years, making a mockery of the principle of self-determination, making a mockery of the principle of national sovereignty, of the right to non-interference in the affairs of other people, makes a mockery of the principle of democracy. The British people will choose their own government, whether Mike Pompeo likes it or not. Indeed, his intervention, I like to think, just as Barack Obama's Brexit debate, made more likely rather than less the outcome against which he has now pledged himself to push back. This naked exceptionalism of the United States is vital to the Julian Assange story. Julian Assange is not an American. He has never committed or is even alleged to have committed any criminal offense in the United States. He is an Australian living in London. Yet the United States extraterritoriality, based on this extraordinary notion of exceptionalism, is that they can reach out anywhere in the globe and punish anyone for anything that they have done of which the United States disapproves. Once upon a time, this was exercised mainly in the case of Cuba, where, almost unbelievably, even state-owned businesses in countries like France, a bank in France, paid $6 billion in fines to the United States for the crime of having committed the crime of trading with Cuba, which is entirely legal under the French legal system. This extraterritoriality was once almost covertly exercised. Now it is as brazen, as plain as the nose on your face. There's another guy. I don't compare them, because the other guy was doing it for the money. Assange never received any money from anybody. But this fellow in New Zealand, Kim.com, is alleged to be guilty of copyright infringement, nicking other people's videos or movies, dastardly, no doubt, though it isn't in the Ten Commandments. The United States has turned New Zealand and its justice system upside down in their demand for his extradition. As I just said to our friends from Rupley, who are live streaming this to a large international audience, and welcome to that audience, Julian Assange is accused of the sum total of telling the truth. No one disputes that. No one says that an American helicopter didn't murder people in broad daylight. Light them up, they said. Journalists, children, civilians, in the street in Iraq. No one says that didn't happen. What they say is that Julian had no right to tell us that it happened. Even though it was done in our name, under our flags, using our tax dollars, pounds. That's all Julian is alleged to have done. Tell the truth with 100%, literally, 100% record of accuracy. No story ever published by Julian Assange has ever had to be withdrawn, has ever been shown to be false. Now, as I said at the last trial, Gregor, people know that it must be wrong that the guy who told the truth about the war crimes is behind bars, and those who committed the war crimes are busy counting their millions in their counting houses around the globe. That cannot be right. And most honest people, if confronted with those facts, would concur that that is not right. Now, I haven't given up hope. I know that there are people on this panel, maybe even in the audience, with a bad opinion of the British judicial system. So do I. But I retain my view, unpopular as it might be. I'd rather take my chances in front of a British judge than a British politician or a British newspaper magnate. The judiciary is one of the least corrupted of our institutions, corrupted though it may be. So I still entertain the hope that sanity, that justice will prevail, and that the sheer disproportionality of the United States demands, which are, I remind you, if convicted, 170 years in prison for publishing the truth. The sheer disproportionality of that may yet persuade a British judge to refuse these demands. And of course, courts and judges don't exist in a vacuum. It's our job. We can't influence the judge, but we can influence the public, and we can influence the politicians who are supposed to represent the public. And if we do our job, we can create an atmosphere in this country where it would be seen to be a grotesque injustice to send this publisher to that fate for whatever crime it's said that he committed. That's our job. That's what we're trying to do. And that's what the speakers are here to persuade you of this evening. Before I turn to them, this is a message from Julian Assange's father, who was here yesterday and was asked to appear tonight. Thank you for the invitation. It would have been a pleasure and a privilege, but I left for Australia via Berlin early this morning. I returned to the UK towards the end of August and would like to participate in future events. Strongest possible thanks and solidarity for your activism and support of Julian. Best wishes, John. I think we should give a round of applause.